We don't have to have our PhD in knob turning to be able to use the keyboard. Hi guys, Justin Stanton here from Snarky Puppy. I'm here today at P&O to demonstrate all these crazy synthesizers for you guys. I really love synthesizers. It's sort of an unlimited palette of what you can express. It can be very intimidating to see all the knobs and being like, I don't really know what I'm doing. But there really are no mistakes, and turn knobs until it sounds good. In this lesson, I'm gonna show you everything you need to know about these synths. Just in a nutshell, a synthesizer is an electronic instrument that generates audio signals. They can generate them as analog signals or digital signals. The Nord would be something that demonstrates a digital signal, and the Moog here is something that demonstrates an analog signal. So this is Moog, Little Fatty. The cool thing about the Moogs is basically they all have essentially the same architecture. The way they're built, you can sort of read them left to right. If we start on the far left here, we sort of have like a panel that has the preset name. We have the octave switch here, and we have the glide toggle switch here. I guess an important thing to say at this point is this synth is monophonic, which means we can only play one note at a time on this synthesizer. For instance, if we go back to the glide button, if the glide is on, and then if I turn that glide off, then the notes go straight there. And then of course we have the octave. So that allows us to change the range of the instrument, because as you can see, we don't have 88 keys anymore. We have 3 octaves. And here is where we can switch our presets. If we're new to synthesizers and we don't feel comfortable using all these knobs here, we can kind of cycle through sounds to see what we like. I'll use this as like a jumping off point. I'll find a preset that kind of is in the ballpark of what I want to do, and then from there, then I'll start turning knobs. So you can hear that this is sort of like a brighter kind of nasally lead sound. And then if I turn and go to the next preset, well, we'll see what happens. Punk Panther. So it's already, you can tell it's like a little lower. The sound is more open. It sounds like it could potentially be like a bass sound, maybe like a really aggressive bass sound. Those are presets, and there's a ton of presets that you can do there. The next section is called modulation. One main focus, the way that I use it mostly, is I think of modulation as vibrato on the keyboard. So this allows us to kind of have some more motion within the sound, so it's not just, here we have a pitch wheel and we have a modulation wheel. So and you hear, if you turn the modulation up so high, the rate so high, it almost sounds like there's a different note happening. The next section is the oscillator section. The oscillator is the thing inside the keyboard that is making a sound. This is an analog synthesizer. This particular keyboard has 2 oscillators. This oscillator section is divided in half. We have the oscillator 1 section, oscillator 2 section. So what I'll do is I'll start with the oscillator 1 section. I'm just gonna come over here and turn the oscillator 2. This is the level, which means the volume, essentially. I'm gonna turn that off for now. So now we're only gonna hear the first oscillator. Right now, you don't hear anything. So this is the volume, oscillator 1 level. Here we have more of a sine wave, which is gonna sound more like a flute. And as we turn, what's called a saw wave. And then as we move over, we're getting to what's called a square wave. So we can hear how the character of the sound changes as we cycle through the waveforms. Here's the octave. That's pretty self-explanatory. We don't have to have both oscillators in the same frequency, so it gives us a wider sound. We can have both oscillators in the same octave or in different octaves. So let's introduce our second oscillator. Okay, so it's interesting when I did that, you hear that there are actually 2 notes happening now, and I said that you can only play 1 note at a time. It's a monophonic synthesizer, but the truth is, because we have 2 oscillators, we can tune the oscillators to different pitches. I'm gonna start flat and I'm gonna tune up. So the oscillators are in unison now. I have the same options for my oscillator 2. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a sawtooth wave on one side, and then on the oscillator 2, I'll have more of a square wave. Okay, here we have a sound that's kind of a little longer, and just to briefly demonstrate the envelope section. So here, You hear that there's not a sharp attack on the sound. And if we look at the envelope here in the volume, the attack is rolled halfway, is at 50%. So if I turn it all the way to 0%, we're going to hear a sharp attack. It's right in right away. Now at 50% and even more, the sound creeps in more and more. So if we go to release, you can see that it's also at 50%. If I turn that down to 0%, the cutoff happens immediately. In the filter section, that's only going to be how the filter reacts. So you hear the sound happens right away, but then you hear the filter creep in and open up a bit more. So we can manipulate both of these things within the sound. I'm going to demonstrate the Thing of Gold sound on the Little Phatty, which is very convenient because this is the keyboard, this Moog Little Phatty is the keyboard that was used on the session. He's using this preset as the basis. I think he just used it. I don't know if he changed anything about the sound. Patch 53, I'll never forget it. It's called Mischievous, which Sean Martin very much is that. So here we have a Sequential Instruments Prophet Rev 2. The big difference between this instrument and the Moog is that this one is polyphonic, which allows us to play more than one note simultaneously. Sounds good low, it sounds good high, but you hear I can play chords versus on the Moog, I can only play one note at a time. If I want to take this sound and say I want to make it more into like a string patch, here we have the filter section. This cutoff is going to allow us, this is going to be the main knob to allow us define the character of the sound to make it more of a gentle sound. So right now you can see that it's rolled very high. As I roll that down, the sound will get softer. Okay, now we have more of a mellow sound. But we can still hear that the attack is very quick. As soon as I press the key down, we hear the note. Maybe I want to make the attack creep in a little bit more, and I'm going to roll my attack up just a bit. Okay. Now we can hear what we call an analog synth string sound. And the bass sounds so good on this too. I remember the first time we started using that, there's a song called White Cap off this record we did called Tell Your Friends. And that's sort of the classic time we used that. I also use it in a song called Sleeper that's on We Like It Here. The good thing about this keyboard is you can get a lot of different sounds. Say our Moog's not working and we need some sort of bass sound. And then like on a song like What About Me, I can play bass on this. Here we have Granddaddy, the Nord Stage 4. As you can see, there's a lot here. This video will not cover the gamut of features that this keyboard has. Honestly, I couldn't do it even if you wanted me to. So we covered the Moog. The Moog is a monophonic synthesizer, which means it plays one note at a time. The Prophet is a polyphonic synthesizer, which means you can play more than one note at a time, and both of those keyboards are analog synthesizers. This keyboard is a digital keyboard, which means that you're using samples in order to generate sounds. First of all, we see that this is 88 keys, so it's like the same size as a piano. It's separated also into sections, much like these keyboards are, but the sections are a little bit different. So we have an organ section, which creates a variety of keyboards like a B3, Farfisa, these different kinds of organs. Here we have a piano section, acoustic pianos, upright pianos, grand pianos, Wurlitzer, Rhodes, Yamaha CP7 electric grand pianos. There's also a synth section where we can do things that we can similarly do on the Moog and the Prophet. And then finally we have an effects section. We have a lot of different ways that we can manipulate the sound after the fact. So we can see as I cycle through these sounds, the character of the sound changes, and these are all samples again. We We can hear some more of the tine sound, the way that the tine is struck. We hear that it's really more like a bell, and some are a little more dull. And as we keep cycling through, we get to the Wurlitzer sound, one of my personal favorites. I'll go back to the Rhodes so you can hear the difference there. Since it's a digital keyboard, there are a lot of presets, so we don't have to have our PhD in knob turning to be able to use the keyboard. There's a lot of great presets already built in. So right now we have this thing called 4 oscillator funk bass, and you can see that our synth section is what's lit up right now. So it sounds kind of similar to what we were dealing with the Moog. This is a sound that we use a lot, this sort of dance synth. Again, we use this on the middle section of Lingus. Analog versus digital, how do we know which synth to use? Well, again, to just quickly recap, we have the Little Phatty, which is a monophonic synthesizer, which means we're only able to play one note at a time. So this is going to be great for lead sounds. Imagine like solos, single line melodies if we want to double a horn part. Also great for bass sounds if we want to double the bass player, or if we are the bass player, we can use this as a bass synth. And then if we move to the Prophet polyphonic synthesizer, which is also analog, we're able to play more than one note. So if we want a synth sound, like imagine big pads or very subdued string sounds, we have those kinds of sounds. Now if we move to the Nord, this is a digital keyboard. Often you'll hear it called an analog modeling synthesizer because you can also do the things that you can do on these two keyboards. Because it's digital, it's much more stable. The Nord also can emulate various acoustic instruments such as grand pianos, electric grand pianos, Rhodes, Wurlitzer. I know a lot of this stuff looks really intimidating. If you've never gone into this world of synthesis and using synthesizers, you're like, where do I start? There's so much to do here. But the beauty of these keyboards, it's a sandbox. You just have to, it's your playground and you just have to experiment. And the beauty is with the presets, you can always go back. You just turn the knob and go back to the preset, go back to the original setting. And there are no rules. It's what you want to do and what you are able to use as a tool. So right now I'm going to show you what each of these keyboards sounds like in action. I'm Justin Stanton from Snarky Puppy, and I will see you inside Piano Note.